there's a light, folks.
Okay, thank you. We are live, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of September 21st, 2022, the last day of summer. We have a nice short agenda today, it looks like. As always, I'd like to acknowledge we're meeting today on the ancestral territory of the Coast Salish peoples. And with that, we can turn to the first item on the agenda, please, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That'll be the approval of the agenda, the amended agenda with the addition of 5 supplemental items for R1.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Director Martman.
I don't know if it's my end, but I'm having some audio difficulty. It's kind of broken up. I can hear you, but I'm not sure which way.
Yeah, same here, Ben. Very low volume and broken up.
Tries. Maybe it's my mic. Is that a little better? Or is it still breaking up?
It's still breaking up. It's louder, but it's breaking up a little bit.
Okay. I'm not sure what that is. We'll have IT see if they can.
I can read your lips easier if you do that, if you need to.
Yeah. Is it, can you make it out, or is it just unintelligible?
I can make out your soft tones, yes. It's workable. If it gets bad, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Is it? Yeah, it's just my audio. My video is fine, Ben. Okay. Well, we'll carry on for a minute and see how we do then. So next item, please, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That'll be the adoption of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting minutes of September 7th.
Okay, thank you. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And the next item, please, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We don't have any business arising from the minutes, and we have next after that is public input period. I don't see anybody wishing to speak in the chamber, and I just check the inbox here, and I don't see anybody for public input period.
Okay, good. No public input today then, so we'll go straight down to reports, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that's R1, report from the Development Services Division, reapplication number DVP 21B05 for 1476 Shawnigan Lake Road, PID 031188320, and that was referred from the May 25th, 2022 board meeting.
Okay, thank you. I see we have Ms. Woods with us. Did you have, there we go, it's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so this application was brought before the committee at the May 18th, 2022 EASC meeting and was subsequently referred to the APC for comment. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the applicant has amended their previous plans that were shown on May 18th to reflect some of the comments provided by the APC. The site plan before you reflects the current proposal, which reduced the overall footprint of the house by 6.4 square meters or 0.8% of the parcel coverage. They've changed the design of the front of the dwelling so that it is further from the front parcel line and reduced the overall height of the building. The applicant also did look into ways to address the request for floodplain exemption, which came into effect as this application was in progress. However, found that raising the house to the 120-meter elevation posed safety and environmental issues, some of which were noted in that staff report and had supporting documentation attached to that staff report. A geotechnical engineer has certified that the proposed 119.35-meter elevation is safe for the intended use. Next slide, please. So this is just to reiterate the fact that the fence will be moved to align with the front parcel line. So currently the fence that you see on the right-hand side there of that red dotted line is on the road right-of-way. This does act to, oops, go back one slide, please. Thank you. That will actually, moving the fence will act to widen the road a little bit, just in that there will be more road dedication provided for road. The APC had noted that the road in that area is narrow. The shed, which is noted by under that big X in the back of the image there, is actually going to be removed as well and replanted with native vegetation. A landscape bond of $5,000 will be collected for that revegetation. Next slide, please. This is just basically to reiterate the fact, it's just a comparison between the two, what was proposed in May and what's proposed today. You can notice there's some significant changes to the design of the front of the house. And then next slide, please. And just noting some of the changes as I sort of highlighted in my original summary, but just there for you to read as well. So height, there's no more height variance request. Setbacks, the front parcel line setback request has been reduced, and the building size has also been reduced. And I believe the last slide is just the recommendations. So the recommendations are there for you. I do believe the applicant is here as well and may have something to say as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Any questions for staff before we ask the applicant? Go ahead, Director Acton.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. Well, I can't remember in the last application, were they asking for a floodplain exemption?
Yes, apologies. They are still asking for the floodplain exemption. Yeah, it came into effect partway through their application. So yes, that's still on the table.
But on the original one, when it went to the APC, it was part of the package that was brought to the APC, because I don't see a lot of changes from that meeting.
The APC, yes, the floodplain exemption was also brought as a part of that application package to the APC. There isn't a change in the ask for the floodplain exemption. There is a change in the design of the house that does sort of address some of the APC's comments regarding how close it was to the front parcel line and the height of the building, as well as the overall size of the building.
Right. I guess for the, could I follow up? For the community, could you explain exactly, kind of like, can you remind us why we introduced the floodplain bylaw? Because I'm concerned about suddenly now we're giving exemptions to it.
I don't have the full rationale behind why it was introduced. I would imagine it's introduced to, some of the properties around Shawnigan Lake are set quite low, and there wasn't previously a floodplain elevation that I know of in that area. So at this point, I mean, there is the Local Government Act does give the ability to provide exemptions to those bylaws, so long as they are certified and accompanied by a geotechnical engineer's professional opinion and certifying them as safe for the intended use.
Follow up, please.
Okay,
So I guess I'm still a little confused. We've introduced this bylaw so that we're not running into the same situation in 20 years, and then this year the lake reached its highest point that it had in, I don't know, a few decades. So I guess I'd like to have a better understanding why we introduced the bylaw. Like, what are we trying to prevent in the future, so that I feel like we're doing a disservice to the community because we have an opportunity to fix a problem that we have and we're not fixing it. So I'd like a professional staff opinion of why we brought this bylaw on and what kind of outcome we were hoping to get by having it.
Okay, see Mr. Tippett has popped up. Is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe you called on me. I couldn't quite hear. Assuming you did, I'll try to answer Director Acton's question. We did actually have floodplain mapping from the province of BC for Shawnigan Lake since, I think, 1990 or thereabouts, which actually had a lower flood elevation or flood construction level than the bylaw that you see now. And the reason for that is there was an updated study of that old floodplain mapping project from the late 80s, I guess, done, and they came up with a number that turned out to be, I think, roughly 1 meter higher than the previous flood construction level. Now, until I guess it was late last year, we didn't have any floodplain bylaw in the CVRD. So how floodplain standards were invoked was when a building permit was applied for, the building inspectors wouldn't issue a permit until such time as the applicants either indicated on their plan they were going to comply with the flood construction level from the floodplain map, not the bylaw in that case, or had a letter from an engineer similar to what Ms. Woods has in the case of this particular file. So the purpose of having a floodplain management bylaw is to make it a bit more formal than this building inspection approval, which is kind of at the very end of the process, and that gives us the opportunity to impose the bylaw at an earlier stage in the process. In this case, a sort of a development variance situation. So now the comment or the question about whether it's a good idea to vary a flood construction level, I can say from a technical standpoint, our advice is that when we get a letter from a qualified professional engineer who has experience in floodplain mapping, and he or she indicates that the property is safe to use in accordance with his or her report, we no longer have liability in respect of that. However, there's another side to the coin, which is like again, if the number is 120 point whatever meters, should we, for other reasons than just liability, stick with that? I think the advice from the planner in this case is not unreasonable. It's not exposing the board to any liability that they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. But I understand the director's comments. It is a good question. Like, I don't think liability is necessarily the only reason to make a decision. You could certainly consider the purpose of the bylaw and whether you're comfortable accepting that. But anyway, I hope that helps a bit.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if there's other questions. Go ahead, Director Nicholson. Sorry, just before you start, Director Wilson, are you there? I just see your video's off. Not sure if we've lost him, but go ahead.
Yes, please, I am here and listening in. Still a bit low volume, but manageable.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Nicholson.
Director Salmon, your voice is very soft.
Yeah, okay. I'll hold it right up close. Is that better?
Thanks. Yeah, that's better.
All right.
So I am wondering, is there a way to, obviously the owners understand the risk if there is indeed a risk on the flood issue, but is there a way that we could put a covenant or something to let any future owners know that because certainly the future is really uncertain on these types of issues, and I think it would be maybe a good thing to do.
Okay, Ms. Woods.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Nicholson. Yes, we absolutely will register a covenant on title. It's a save harmless covenant. Building officials will not issue the building permit or occupancy until that covenant has been registered on title. It will also reflect the geotechnical engineering report, which has some design guidelines around it, such as raising any sort of electrical or mechanical equipment above the 120 meter elevation. So there'll be electrical outlets up high, and and also, I believe, constructing out of concrete, the actual foundation. So bringing the concrete foundation up to the 120-meter elevation. And Mr. Wiley is actually here as well, and he can correct me if I've misspoken about the comments of that. Unfortunately, I don't have the geotechnical report directly in front of me at this moment.
No, that was very good. Thank you very much. I think I'd just like to comment on a few things. So I fully support the flood construction level. It is designed on a 1 in 200 year event, which I think is good. It's planned to take in, of course, climate change in the future for the next 100 years. So through our review and working with the RISIC Geotechnical, they've looked at this. It's based largely, and the original report done for the CVRD on a very conservative measure, right? So we're weighing all of that in. In this case, a value of 119.35 was selected as a suitable long-term flood construction level for this specific lot, considering the hardships of this lot. And a lot of things are kind of not put into consideration when I guess you look at site specific. So they talk about wave action, and a lot of that can be stopped with the retaining wall that we actually have for the patio. So one of the core features of trying to meet a flood construction level is we have to build essentially like this concrete platform to come up to a certain level, right? And that's how we base everything off of, right? So that actually helps with a bit of that wave action. But once again, through the RISIC report that we've kind of followed, all the services, mechanical, electrical, will be above the 120-meter mark. Additionally, with the construction of it, we've designed the whole house to be on the basement level to be an ICF, which is insulated concrete foam. Okay, so what it is it's all constructed, it's all concrete, more durable structure than opposed to like wood frame, and all that goes up to the main floor, right? So in case of a 1 in 200 year event, which can happen through the lifespan of the building for sure, the damage to the house would be nothing in regards to the actual structure. All the wood elements on the inside, the drywall, of course, have to be replaced, and that's the risk of the owners. But a lot of this is when you look at the hardship of the specific hardship of the lot is we would love to meet the 120-meter mark if we're able to move the house back. Right, we have no room to maneuver the house to get it outside of the stream side protection enhancement area, which is the riparian regulations, right? So we're limited in what we can do within the riparian area. So this is partly why we've shifted the house back towards the road. And a big part personally is the accessibility from that lower level to actual grade. Okay, so in particular, we've actually, my clients, the homeowners, have submitted a letter just kind of outlining and describing their family makeup, and their son has significant special needs, and accessibility is certainly a concern. So of course, as we kind of raise that flood construction level, right, we have to build a larger structure and a base. And that kind of conflicts with the overall setbacks, things like that. So we're trying to find a very unique compromise in all this, and that's where the RISIC support comes in and our overall design adjustments as per the APC.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from Mr. Wiley or staff? Go ahead, Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this question is for staff. It reminded me that I had another question. So there is a variance for the setback, but we're not deciding on that at this time. Is that automatically part of this application, or, has already been given to the applicant?
Ms. Woods?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is part of the application. It is recommendation, the first set of recommendations there that are considered the development variance permit. So it will, the front setback and the setback from the watercourse are part of this in addition to the floodplain exemption.
Director Acton?
Okay, thank you. So to the engineer, are you saying that if the setback was a better variance, then you would be able to meet this floodplain bylaws requirement?
Okay, Mr. Wiley?
Certainly, if we had a larger lot, we'd be able to move this without. The hardship of the lot is it's largely within. You can't build a house within the repairing area, right? So our footprint is very limited, and we've opted to kind of shift it back. So once again, as we raise the house, our footprint gets larger due to the FCL, right? We have to be able to manage to access grade. So think of if we have to increase to 120 meters to meet that FCL, right? We have to extend our staircase on the patio and the 3 staircases that we have to extend out. Additionally, one of the concerns is as you have kind of retaining walls that are unsupported that come out of the ground, you have to have the higher they are out of grade and unsupported, you have to have a larger footing footprint, more steel, concrete, things like that. And this is what we're trying to manage in just slightly reducing the overall FCL level.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have Director Kuhn.
I move option 1.
Okay, it's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Director Wilson seconds. Okay, any further discussion? Director Martman.
Thank you. Just wanted to get an idea of the APC's meeting because I just see the in the report that it basically says that it was to deny, and I don't know if it was for all the different reasons that have been adjusted, or is there other things? I don't see the APC report.
Who would like to take that? Ms. Woods?
Yes. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Martman, a lot of the concerns that were brought before were addressed through the redesign. The APC did have concern with the flood construction level as well, although as the applicant has explained, there were some unique challenges with this lot that didn't allow them to actually bring it up to the 120 meter elevation. But other than that, they did have concerns about the front parcel line, and that the dwelling was too close to the front parcel line, so the applicant moved it back. They had concerns that it was too tall of a building, so they have reduced the height of the building. And although it is within the parcel coverage, the allowed parcel coverage, the APC did comment that it was a large dwelling, so the applicant has also reduced a bit of the parcel coverage, still within the allowable limit.
Okay, thank you. I may have to call a short recess here. I think I'm having IT difficulties. I cannot see anyone. So why don't we have a 5-minute recess and, oh, there, we just popped back. Good. There we go. Okay, so fine, we'll go to Director Wilson next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems to me that the APC has asked for a lot of changes to be made, and the applicants seem to have made all the changes that have been asked for and have been very reasonable in doing this. And I think basically the staff recommendation should be maybe call a vote on and see what happens here.
Okay, well, I'll just turn to Director Acton, the director for the area, and make sure she's on side.
So I guess my question would be to staff, is that the staff recommendation, and is it only based on the professional report? Because is it possible to build on this lot a smaller house that doesn't require the floodplain bylaw to be amended?
Staff, Ms. Woods, 2 questions.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So the lot is very small to start with. Sorry, I don't have the actual size of the lot, but it is quite encumbered. And even bringing I will I'll defer to Mr. Wiley for his professional opinion in terms of the building. But from a planning perspective, regardless of where you put the house on this lot, like they have sort of moved it as far towards the road as allowed. Raising it to the 120 is going to be a concern. There's not enough space in this lot for them to move the dwelling further back and not be encumbered by that 120 meter elevation. I will defer to Mr. Wiley if he has anything else to add for that.
Mr. Wiley?
Thank you. Yeah, just, I mean, to comment on that, certainly, you know, our process in talking to planning and talking to Madrona Environmental has been to push the house as close as possible to the road. And that was one of the conflicts that we had with the APC, where they wanted us to kind of shrink that and provide more setback. But as it applies to the FCL, you know, in reducing or producing building a smaller home. I mean, the house that we're proposing is only slightly bigger than what was there before, and our clients purchased a 3-story home that's roughly in the same location that it is now. So our core intent is to rebuild in largely the same footprint of what is there before. And the reason why you get a difference in the actual footprint compared from the old house to the new house is due to the patio as part of the SCL requirements. We have to have those retaining walls, right? So it's largely the same house footprint.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to also jump back in and state that the applicant did talk to a QEP as well regarding whether fill could be brought into this raise up the property to the 120 meter elevation. And they did receive a letter from the QEP stating that bringing in that amount of fill would not be permitted under the riparian areas protection regulation wrapper.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Director Acton.
Thank you. Last comment. I just wanted to say that, you know, I appreciate that the owners have done lots of, they've made some adjustments to try and accommodate. Moving the fence is simply that fence was encroaching on someone else's land. And looking at the numbers, I wouldn't say that the APC has really influenced a lot of change here. But I will go along with Director Kuhn hesitantly. And, you know, I think that if our bylaws are not serving us, then, you know, it seems quite problematic to me that we can't fix this for future generations. But I will go with the professionals.
Okay, I do have Director Morrison.
Thank you for that, Director Acton. You know, just reviewing this and all of the information contained, you know, this is one of those that, like, you just can't get there from here. It's a small lot, trying to make them whole with what they're trying to do. I want to acknowledge the fact that the applicants have actually come in the front door and have worked with staff to do what's best for the site. And as much as we want to meet the intent and the spirit and the regulation, this one is going to be one of those that it's going to take judgment of this group to say, yes, this should proceed with the best of what's been able to be done here. And I'll support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, it's been moved and seconded. Ms. Ferguson, maybe you could read that recommendation just so we're clear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that 1, development variance permit number DVP 21B05 for 1476 Shawnigan Lake Road, PID 031188320 be issued. And 2, that an exemption to the Shawnigan Lake Flood Hazards Bylaw number 4348 be granted in accordance with the RISIC geotechnical report.
Okay, I'd like to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll turn to the next item, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. R2 is a report from the Community Planning Division, reapplication number RZ18I05 for Woodland Shores Lot 64 park dedication and zoning amendment.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a presentation on this one? Staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle's going to bring up the slide and I'll start then. But before she gets that up, I'll just say, if you're wondering why it's an 18 number, which suggests 2018, it's that's actually an old file number of a resolved rezoning. This is a suggested adjustment to the zoning based on that previous rezoning. So, okay, thank you very much, Michelle. We'll get into it right now. So it's lot 64 at Woodland Shores. Now, some of you around the board table might remember lot 64 because it was rezoned some years ago. Waterfront zoning for higher density not too far away from it was shifted from the waterfront lot to lot 64, and so that it's the same site. It still hasn't been developed yet. You can see its context location here. It's right next to Bald Mountain Park. It's across this Marble Bay Road from another park, and then there's a neighborhood park just off Lakeshore as well. So Michelle, please go to the next slide. So, oops, there you go. Sorry for it's not particularly legible, but what the point of showing this is really just to give you an idea of the topography. You can probably tell it's rather steep by the contour lines being close together there. Now, the large property that's kind of triangular-ish on the southwestern side of the property, the one that's right on Marble Bay Road. This is a subdivision layout that was proposed in 2021 for this site in accordance with the zoning, which, as I said earlier, in 2018 was shifted from the waterfront. This was intended to be one of the private lots that would be sold following subdivision. It later transpired that right through not quite the middle of that property, but through that semi-triangular property is the main access to Bald Mountain Park, which is, as the previous slide showed, immediately to the west of the site. And so, in other words, there's an encroachment, I guess you could say, on this proposed lot. And so the developer proponent became aware of this when they were actually doing some site work and approached staff to ask what should be done about it. And obviously we can't have a public access, for a major park like that, going through a private property, even with an SRW or something like that. And so we discussed the possibility of maybe adding that semi-triangular lot to the park zoning, and in consideration of that, thank you, Michelle. Go to the next. That's perfect. Yep. When you go to the east side, which is to say the right-hand side of this picture, you can see the proposed extension of a road to the north that kind of curves off a bit. There's a dashed line a little bit to the west of that. That sort of ellipse in there is an area that is roughly equivalent to the area of this I keep calling it semi-triangular. I can't think of a better way to describe it, lot. And so the idea is if we made that lot park and it was donated to the CVRD in lieu of the other sort of elliptical piece on the east side, which originally was intended to be park, this would not only deal with the park access issue, but also would enable them, if you can go to the very next slide, Michelle, to do a revised subdivision. So you can still see that lot down there that's kind of triangular-ish, but that would become a CVRD titled park lot. The subdivision would then be shifted a little bit eastwards into that elliptical area. Now the consequence of doing this change to the zoning is such that it actually means there'd be less cutting and filling given the steep topography of the site to gain access to these proposed lots. And so it has the side benefit of providing a better gradient, not only for the main public road that kind of heads off to the north that they would have to build, but also for the internal roadway as well. So this is not an application by an applicant. This is a staff suggestion. If you don't mind going to the next slide, please, that we actually ourselves initiate an amendment to the zoning bylaw, which would do essentially what I said, and it's the various numbers here set out the steps. The first being to accept the park dedication area of that sort of triangular-ish lot, which is around 3,100 square meters, in lieu of other parkland to the east. Secondly, that another amendment that would shift the zoning to R10 a little bit to the east, that elliptical area I was describing. Thirdly, that we refer it to the two named First Nations there, and that we not hold a public hearing because it's a minor adjustment really that for technical reasons, and that instead we advertise a public notice and that an amendment bylaw be prepared. So that's the recommendation. It's a staff initiated suggestion. We felt as staff, having talked to Brian Farquhar and other staff about this, that considering that our own trail was on this private property, we felt it was appropriate to bring it forward as a internal CVRD proposed amendment. So I'll leave it at that, and if there are any questions, I'll try my best to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tippett. Any questions? Director Kuhn.
I move the application.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Director Nicholson and Director Acton. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious as to why this wasn't caught sooner. And I'm wondering if the Parks Commission in this area have had a look at this or looked at it before, and why this happened.
Mr. Chair, Brian Farquhar, I see, has appeared magically, and I'm sure he's better equipped to answer Director Nicholson's question.
Mr. Farquhar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Director Nicholson. As Mr. Tippett noted, through this overall development, it was part of a rezoning that was approved by the board back in 2007, which had not only a whole bunch of land dedication as community amenity contributions, but also a lot of built amenities, including pathways and trails. At the time, the developer actually was involved in putting in the trail, so I think it was something that sort of wasn't on the developer's radar as much as it was on staff's radar, because this area hadn't been surveyed out at the time in detail. So it's only come to light recently by both staff and by the developer that the original trail network laid out that the developer was involved putting in actually overlaid on some of their lands. So as Mr. Tippett noted, there's mutual benefits both to the community in terms of retaining the major access into Bald Mountain Park. It's also an area that is quite steep coming down to the large wetland area just immediately to the west as well, which we have a wetland loop going around. So as a backdrop, I believe a lot of people probably presume that this area is actually part of the park already and not part of a future development area. So that's the essence of why at the staff level we believe there's value in the committee and the board considering this in terms of what the community is already seeing and using as what they think is park out there.
Follow up, Director Nicholson.
Yeah, so I get that this seems like a logical thing to do, and I'm certainly not against having this happen. However, I look at things from a sort of the principles of it, and we should always be striving for a consistent and fair process. And the other principle is that those who benefit should be paying for the changes. And it seems to me that the developer stands to gain here, and the taxpayers are having to foot the bill of the staff time and the advertising. And granted, that may not amount to a lot for the benefit that will accrue to the CVRD keeping that access point open. But I just, everything is so expensive these days, and I really think that we should be looking at trying to recover our costs.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn now to Director Acton. You okay? Any further discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'd like to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll go to the next item then, please, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. R3 is a report from the Inspection and Enforcement Division, Bylaw Enforcement 2022 second quarter report, and this is for information.
Okay, thank you. It's for information. Mr. McDonald, did you have any comments? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, you're muted. Mr. McDonald, we couldn't hear you. Seem to have lost him. See, Rob, Mr. Harris is there. I assume Mr. McDonald's trying to get back. I'll wait 1 minute to see what I can. Mr. Harris, did you have comments in the meantime?
I have no comments, but Mr. McDonald has just advised that he's having technical difficulties at this time. So I'm here to answer any questions if I can.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. Then I think Director Acton, did you have a question?
Sure, thank you. I read somewhere, I think it was that there's been like 78% increase in calls for this quarter, and then it lists what most of them are: zoning matters, burning, unsightly premise, building, soil. I guess the zoning matters one is kind of like, I'm just curious if there's zoning matters and you're getting calls on them, are they often that people are incorrect, or like, so if people are right and the zone, like, to me, that's a hard issue to solve.
Okay. Don't know if that was a question or.
Yeah. Zoning complaints again top the charts, and there's generally some sort of basis to those complaints. Again, it seems to reflect the majority of it is people residing in RVs and illegal structures or illegal suites. That's the majority of it right now.
Okay, thank you. Director Smith?
Thank you very much. I have a question for staff. When it says waste management, is that our recycle collection that is being under the waste management?
Through Mr. Chair, absolutely that is captured. Any recycling issues, such as putting your totes out too early. Generally, what we're seeing in this report is as it associates to illegal dumping in the district.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, so that was for information, and we'll turn now to the next item. Ms. Ferguson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. R4 is a report from the Inspection and Enforcement Division, Rebuilding Inspection, 2022 second quarter report, and this is also for information.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Harris? Oh, Mr. McDonald. Welcome back.
I'm showing up as Mr. Farquhar.
All right, did you have anything to say on either this one or the last item?
Nothing to add, just that I've sort of looked at the numbers already for third quarter, and as to date, we're probably surpassing what those second quarter results were. So we're still seeing improvements.
Okay, thank you. Director Acton?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of thinking about the last one. If we're having more complaints about people living in RVs and illegal suites, and are we discussing internally maybe coming forward with a strategy to address this these rising issues?
Mr. Chair, that's not something that staff has looked at this time, but if directions given by the board, we could certainly look into that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Director Morrison. Director Morrison.
Thank you, through you to staff. I'm really quite curious. We've had a lot of activity in the building inspection and activity, and I'm wondering if I heard Mr. McDonald had taken a quick look at third quarter, and with the increasing interest rate environment, are we noticing any lag or decrease in new housing starts as related to the increased cost of money and borrowing and the likes, or are we yet to maybe see that coming in the future?
Mr. McDonald?
I think that's something, through you, Mr. Chair, that's something I think we'll see in the future, but right now the building market is still quite hot, and I think that's why we're still seeing a lot of development. And I've also noticed the building costs are starting to come down as well as far as materials, so could see that the added increase in new construction.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Director Acton.
Thank you. Well, I think it would be I'd like to be able to not lose this opportunity to talk about a bit of our crisis in housing. And so is there perhaps, like if bylaws collecting all this data, perhaps there's some data they could put together and we could bring it forward to the board and discuss it further. If it's starting to, like 80% is almost doubling your workload, and it's certainly a huge red flag that I don't think we should not notice.
Okay. Further comments on that? Mr. McDonald? Sorry, we can't hear you again. Oh dear. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Mr. McDonald, I go to Director Nicholson.
Well, I was just checking the minutes from our last meeting because I was sure that we discussed it then, and we asked staff to, we referred it back to staff for a review of options to respond to the issues raised by the Coalition for Sustainable Housing. So we haven't received that report yet, so I don't know if discussing it anymore right now is a good use of time.
Good point, Director Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, fair enough. And I guess just, I guess I'm just talking about more like the data. So that if the data's there, then bylaw can share it with planning and we'll discuss, or the next board will discuss when the time's right. You're right, Director Nicholson, thank you.
Okay, now, Mr. McDonald, did we, I don't think we heard your last comments.
I think I may have accidentally hit the mute button on that one, but I think Director Nicholson is actually correct there. It did come up at our last meeting and will become forward in a future report.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, any further on either of these two items? Seeing nothing, we'll just, those are information. We'll move to the next item, please. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. R5 is a report from the Utilities Division, Sewer Systems Establishment Bylaw Amendments, and there are multiple recommendations. Do you want me to read them?
That's an awful lot to read. Why don't we just assume that everyone has them in front of them and ask if there's any questions or discussion. Looks like, okay.
Move the
Director
recommendation.
Morrison. Okay, they've been moved, seconded. I see Vanessa's there. Do we have any questions or discussion for staff? Doesn't look like it. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We'll move to the next item, please. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. R6 is a report from the Utilities Division, Street Lighting Service Bylaw Amendments. There are two recommendations.
Okay, we'll do the same method and assume we have them in front of us. Is there any discussion on those? Director Kuhn.
Yes, with regard to the Mead Creek bylaw, with regard to the street lighting, there's an increase proposed, and the increase is
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we need to get Klaus to speak up a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on. Yeah. Yeah, for the Mead Creek area, there's an increase proposed, and it is largely going to come from an increase in the based on the assessment value. So it's not parcel tax, it's based on the assessment value. And I do have questions about that. And my question is, street lighting, as far as I'm concerned, it should not be based on the value of a property. It should be based on the parcel tax, because it has nothing to do with the value of a property. And I think we're starting to go more and more on assessment values, and to me, it feels kind of uncomfortable because if houses, I mean, right now it doesn't look like housing prices are going to go up an awful lot more, but if they will, the incremental increase is going to be there. And I would much rather see a parcel tax where if we are short, we'll have to have a vote on it. We'll have to say, okay, fine, we'll increase it that much and we'll do it. And not this automatic increase that we have with other functions as well, and it bothers me. It's based on assessment value, and your assessment value goes up. Oh, well, we've got more money, and I just don't. I don't agree with that. So I wonder what to do about that.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we have anyone from finance on the call, unless any other staff have comments on that. I don't think so. So, Director Kuhn, I don't have an answer at this moment. Any further comments? Director Morris.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded. Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Okay, motion carries. Good. Thank you very much. We'll carry on, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no unfinished business. New business was discussed in R1. Question period. You want to speak? We have one for question period.
Okay. Good. Welcome, Ms. Kaufman.
Good afternoon, Director Salmon, and thank you. I have a question not related to an agenda item today, but as per the question period policy, I believe I have a right to bring forward a question that is of interest to the CVRD. Okay. And my question is, on the board meeting of July 13th, the public was assured that, I'll just back it up a bit, that policy changes need to come to the, do they need to come to the EASC first before going to the board?
So I'm not sure. So that was at the July 13th board meeting.
Yeah. And then if you want me to expand, I will.
You know, I think, I don't know if I would know even the answer even if you expanded, so.
Okay.
If I can get back to you on that, or maybe have the chair get back to you on that one.
Okay, so can I go ahead with my question then?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. The chair assured the public that a policy would be coming forward on cell phone tower placement policy prior to the MOCP, and that would be done in September. And this is the last meeting of the ESC in September. And I'm not sure if there's a board meeting next week, but my question is, why was this policy not brought forward? And how was that decision made not to bring it forward? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll just have to get back to you on that one, Ms. Kaufman. I really don't know why that was not on our agenda today and what state the staff is at with that. So I will get back to you, though.
Thank you. And can I have a time frame when you would get back to me, please?
Oh, I think by tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll call you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Director Annie DiNardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you could just bear with me for a moment, I wanted to actually give you a round of applause, our virtual applause and in-house applause, and thank you for being the Electoral Area Services Chair for this year. It was very valuable. You did a great job. I just wanted to, this is our last one. You and I are both no longer going to be running again, so we've got the virtual clap for you. Thank you so much.
Okay, well,
and also, while I am actually giving praise to our chair as well, it doesn't come without the staff that have been behind it at Electoral Area Services. So Jennifer Hughes, Amanda Ferguson, and Chase Convery, this is to you as well, another clap, and thank you for our great staff at CVRD for all the years that I've been here, but also through all these challenges, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Annie DiNardo. And as I said to Director Kuhn earlier, retiring, but I will think fondly of you all every Wednesday. So, every Wednesday when I'm not here. So thank you very much. And I think we need a motion to adjourn. Move seconded. Meeting adjourned.